Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Penalty Loop Podcast, a podcast about biathlon by Jordan Gottschalk from Penalty Loop and a regular guest, RJ Weiss from Biathlon Analytics.
RJ,
how are you doing?
How you doing?
Isn't it? So how long was it ago that we were in Oslo?
A month? I'm looking at the calendar right now.
When you look at the calendar, that's probably where it is, but it feels so long ago.
Oh, yeah, it feels like it was 3 months ago.
Yeah.
If not more. Yeah, it feels a million years ago.
But have you been? Have you been building a nice toy biathlon rifle?
You know, we've
for
been
the kids
great.
to play with, or
we were supposed to record yesterday, but my dog was very sick to his stomach and was pooping all over the house, so that was great. Not to gross anybody out, but he had what's called an anal gland abscess. So yeah, go ahead and look that up. It's really really fantastic, and smelly and gross. So yeah, so that's how things are going on our end. What about you guys?
Well, nothing like that. Pretty good. We had our last ski of the season last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So that was nice. And what else is going on? Not much. Just, busy at work and life in general, I suppose. Trying to squeeze in a race here and there to rewatch in the background. But
any favorites that you've gone back to recently?
No, and I've actually, so what I do, because I always, I can spend half an hour trying to find which is the perfect race to watch. And then I'm like, I just wasted half an hour, could have watched another race. So sometimes I just sort by date or sort by name or whatever, most popular, that kind of thing, or whatever shows up, I pick. And like I said, it's kind of with half an eye, but it's still, pick up a few things here and there. It's just a nice thing to listen to.
Are you doing only this season, or did you go look at anything else?
No, just whatever. And yeah, it's unfortunate. The German TV ARD, they have this. The name escapes me now, but the guy who for the last 10 years, I think, I've always assumed was Dexy, who's actually not Dexy. He has this show where he visits former biathletes.
Mm-hmm.
And just, they talk a little bit about their successes and history, but it's a lot about what are you doing now? Like they were visiting Rosalind and seeing her as a mom and how she's still involved with biathlon, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they visit their homes and that kind of thing. So it's really cool. And he's quite, he's not just focusing on Norwegian and German athletes. I think he was actually with Andrea Henkel. Jeez, I don't know where that got stuck in my brain, but I think he visited her at some point. So it's a really cool show, and obviously that one would have been in English, but the Germans obviously is in German, but especially when it goes abroad, it's in English typically. So it's really we talk a lot about the athlete, but also the person behind the athlete. So I think it's pretty cool to kind of get a view of an athlete 2 years after they retired or something like that. So
that's a lot of fun. No, I'm glad he's doing it.
And I have not looked at any social media, and I must say that I'm kind of enjoying it. I know I'm missing out on stuff, and it's probably where it's the easiest to find news and see what athletes are up to. But at the same time, maybe it's because I don't use it a lot that I get even more garbage. But it just feels now like it's 1 in 4 is maybe actually about a biathlete, even though that account is strictly for biathlon. Like I only follow biathletes and biathlon unions and that kind of thing. But so yeah, I don't know. I'm getting frustrated on the one hand with all the garbage that I see, and on the other hand with the fact that since that is sort of the best source for news, it always surprises me that I can never find German blogs or news sites. I mean, there's some, but there's nothing. It feels like there's not really a news site about biathlon that just kind of keeps insight on everything throughout the season.
No, that's why you got to go on social media and waste your time scrolling through all the junk.
So, or listen to your podcast host who does keep up and actively participates in that world. So,
well, we'll see.
So, what's new in biathlon, and what's new with you?
New in biathlon. So we'll actually, that's a really good transition. I was talking about social media. So there's a couple big news items. So Marianne Wiesensaarter announced her retirement earlier this week.
Isn't she pretty young? Or
she's 30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she announced her retirement.
For us, but
yeah, right. Young for us, but sort of middle of the career for a biathlon. She announced her retirement, and then
specific reason, or
I think she didn't say a specific reason, but I think just sort of an inability to break through to the World Cup level, and sort of the writing on the wall with the amount of youth that she just said, you know what, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. And then what's his name? Velpich, the recently former German men's head coach, is taking the men's head coaching position with the Polish team. And so nothing, no major headlines, announcements, or anything like that but just that he joined the team. And of course, we'll check in with Tobias to get the inside scoop on how he's really doing over there. I'm being a little bit silly. But so he joined there, and then the Austrian team just announced today that they are promoting from within and elevating, give me just 1 second because I just closed it out, elevating Ludwig Gredler to the head coaching position. And he gave this quote. He said, "We all know that the golden age is over," but talked about building momentum towards Hochfilzen hosting the World Championships in 2028, which was kind of a frank quote, but I guess it's true when you look at kind of where Austria is these days. So,
I don't know. That surprised me a little bit, especially with the Olympics coming up, and we know Anna Gantler had a disappointing season, but
just the men.
Oh, on the men's side, okay.
Yeah, just the men. Not talking about the women, just the men. Yeah.
So he's given up on Simonator, eh?
Yeah, he says the golden age of Simonator is over, and we need another 40-year champ. Or 25
So what
years.
age is he going in now then? Silver?
So anyway, that's the news as far as I'm aware. I can't think of anything else that's really happened big since then. The other major social media stuff has been just watching people go on vacation.
It's that time of the year, right?
So the Claude brothers went to, I think, the Maldives with their respective partners, including Anna Gandler, who documented it very well for social media. And I don't mean that to be like, I think that sort of sounded the way I said it, but she's just very good at it. Yeah. And so we got,
what I find sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I just find it so cool that, she has many videos where you can see that she's had a thought for a long time, because it's like either a time lapse or, wearing winter clothes and then being in a sunbathing suit or. So there's, other than, obviously spending quite a bit of time of doing a very good job, there's also a lot of thought of planning it. And I always have to laugh when I say Emilia Jacqueline, or no, Emile, no, Claude, no, my God,
her partner,
yes,
yeah, Emilia and Claude, yeah.
Oh, okay,
you got it right. Trust yourself.
Yeah. Anyway, his look 9 out of 10 times of when I was following it more was always like, yeah, it's fun, and I'll participate because she wants me to.
Yeah. Can I? There was actually a really funny one that they posted, and it was something along the lines of, boyfriend waiting to make sure that the picture he took was okay before he can go play. And he was standing there like wearing his snorkel gear as Anna was, scrolling through her, presumably looking at pictures, and then she gave him the thumbs up and he dives off the dock and to go swim. So it's funny you mentioned that, because I just saw that, I think, just yesterday or 2 days ago.
Do you did you happen to see if Nick is surfing with his buddies again, or
is Nick surfing? Let me check. I did see he was on vacation.
Still, to this day, it haunts me that I put the Danish flag on his surfboard on that.
He didn't intentionally put the Danish flag. No, he's doing some spring skiing, it looks like. I don't think he's gone skiing quite yet. Yeah, it looks like he's just...
unless he started early.
Unless he started very early, but he just hasn't posted about it yet. It's not up there.
I'm assuming Baiba's working hard on her vacation.
Baiba is not vacationing at all, it doesn't look like. Although, how could you tell?
Yes. I was just going to say.
Baiba is, working hard. Leah Meyer, and I don't know if she's in a relationship with Christo Simmer from Estonia, but they have both been traveling around in Nepal together. So if they aren't in a relationship, maybe they will be soon. I don't know what they were doing in there, but they look like they're having a great time in Nepal.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I think I saw Paulina Botovska-Fialkova was in Thailand or the Philippines. She was
that's cool.
Out in that general region of the world as well. I think a lot of people are getting out. Some people I've seen a bunch of people in Paris. Yeah, that's just been kind of fun. Just been fun to see them relaxing and doing fun things. Doro ended up at a tennis tournament, it looks like.
Okay.
I think she got to hand out a trophy.
Oh, not participating.
No, not participating. No.
Okay.
I think she was just there, just being Doro, right? Just being famous.
Yeah. Okay.
There was a whole. I don't want to talk about it too much. There was a whole article I saw on one of those the Journal of Winter Sports news sites talking about the explosive pictures. I don't remember the way they phrased it of Lompich. Basically, she had a bunch of pictures of her on a wearing a bikini on a beach, and I was like, I just don't know why we needed to have a whole article about it, but there it is. That's it. That's all I got as far as vacations go.
Am I naively asking if that's just, this is what a biathlete does under a summer break, or was it more about like a emphasis on photo shoot or something like that?
She was. I went and looked at her Instagram page, and to me, it just looked like a biathlete on their break. So I don't know why they were so hot to trot about about this, but it is what it is. Gotta make some news stories, I guess, somewhere.
I suppose.
And here I am talking about it, so I guess they got what they wanted.
You again, hey?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just want to come back to that show, because it is really fun if you have some time. It's called, so it's on ARD Mediatek, the streaming site of the ARD, and it's called Ohne Gewehr, without rifle, OHNE, and then Gewehr, GEWEHR. Look it up, because they have some really cool athletes in there. Like I said, Andrea Henkel, Marte Roysland, Frank Ulrich. What else did you have in there? Kati Wilhelm, Kaiser Makarainen, the Nora Berger was part of it. Magdalena Neuner. Let's see, Raphael Poiret. Anyway, really, if you can't wait for the new season to start, it's definitely something to check out. Marie Dorin Habert, Michael Reusch. So yeah, lots to watch. Sorry.
All of these athletes that you just mentioned, they all sound like people that, if you were building a biathlon Hall of Fame, that they might be in it.
Yeah, well, there's probably a good reason why they picked those and not number, who got 88th in the World Cup standing as their season highlight, which is still very respectful. But
I mentioned that as somebody who has been working on this project for several weeks now. So it was interesting. I posted a question on Twitter, on X, a little while, a couple weeks back, about sort of how people prioritize different things. So, and I mentioned overall globes, globe top, overall top 3 finishes, discipline globes, Olympic medals, world medals, wins, podiums, top tens, as different things. So it was just really interesting to see how people felt. The one that I thought was the most, I shouldn't say the one, because there were a couple, but I think that people valued individual wins differently, discipline globes, and then things like Olympic medals were they varied pretty wildly. I think pretty much everyone thought that obviously the overall globe is the biggest thing, but kind of those other.
Was there any sort of discussion between individual wins versus team wins, relays?
Nope, I didn't ask about it, and nobody really brought it up. But to be fair, it wasn't specified, and I only really mentioned individual wins versus team wins.
Okay. And did you look into that age at first win?
That's still on my list. Still on my list of things to do.
Oh, okay.
So we chat about.
And
this
if you want to, if for some reason Olan or Björn is not on your list yet, maybe look at the age of the last win or podium.
I think he sets the standard. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. So the other thing I was thinking, because of course you can't bring those things up without me thinking about it at 4 a.m.
Good.
Did you also consider, because I always like in Hall of Fames where they have people that maybe weren't the most successful but had a big impact on biathlon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Obviously on coaching you can think of Ziggy Mazet, but I'm also thinking of maybe the Slettemark family as a whole for Greenland/Denmark. I don't know the ins and outs. Maybe there's information that I'm not aware of, but I think the current president of the IBU has done a really good job in the face of the organization, having been cleaned up a lot after a lot of corruption suspicions, and first of all, you hardly ever see or hear from him, which I think is a good thing.
No.
And I think they also do a really good job at making sure that it's not becoming a 3-country show. So maybe that could be a separate category in case you need some extra things to look into.
No, and I think it's important too, because it can't all be the impact that somebody had on the sport can't always be measured in numbers. You mentioned Ziggy Mazet. I mean, of course he would need to be in there, and there's no way to measure, right? He's a coach, right? So you can't say that his impact was measured in, I guess you could look at the globes that his athletes won, but yeah. So I think that's another really important thing to look at too. Mm-hmm. Or if you had an athlete who had, maybe not the greatest stats ever, but then also had a further career as a coach, and that could be, yeah. So there's a lot that goes into it, and this is a project that is far from complete, but it's been fun to look at. I wouldn't say there's necessarily been any major surprises.
So I have a gut feel question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think JT Bow really got even better because of Ziggy Mazet, or do you think Ziggy Mazet looks a lot better as a coach because he coached JT Bow?
That's a good question. I don't know. Do you remember when he started? I don't remember the exact year he started coaching him.
No, I don't either. I was actually thinking that it would be interesting to look at sort of the win percentage before and after, but because it's obviously he was the coach of the whole team, but I've always kind of seen him as the almost like maybe not private coach, but more like I'm JT Bow and to some extent Tarja Bow's coach, and the other ones I'll just I'll do them as well while I'm there anyway. And I know I'm totally underselling what he's doing, and I know it's not like that, but I don't know. I can't shake that feeling. If anything, it just got confirmed with that whole discussion that we were listening to in Oslo,
Sure.
where
Yeah.
the day before the race, he was still completely unclear what Sturla needed to do if he would want to beat JT, even though he was leading in points.
So this is related to what I'm about to say is related to that question you just brought up. As a part of this, I also looked at the best single seasons, which are really it's a matter of like you basically are going through and looking at people who won the Globe and how great their seasons were. There were a couple of athletes who didn't win the Globe who also had really good seasons as well. But the reason I bring this up is because if you go back and look, the sort of the gap, I think, of the fastest athletes to the median athletes in terms of ski speed has sort of narrowed over the last 20 years, which is not surprising. I think there's the depth in the sport gets deeper. And the fastest of the fast athletes aren't necessarily that much faster than they used to be. So, you would see, for example, looking back to Bjorn Dahlen, that like in his greatest seasons, he was running, well, I've got it in here somewhere, regularly 5.9% faster than median, 6.9% faster than median, 5.2% faster than median, right? So he was just really, really fast. And then, but
was
more
he
recently,
really, really fast, or was
that
the field a lot slower?
No, that's exactly it, right? I should say he was relatively very, very fast. And then you look at someone like Fourcade, who was still the fastest man in those seasons, and he was 3.75% faster, 3.98% faster. And then more recently, you have JT Bowe and the 22-23 season when he was 5.95% faster than median, which is just sort of outrageous because of not only being right, just it stands out in when it happened, right? If he had done that back in the same time as Bjorn Dahlen, I don't think it would stand out as much, but it looks so ridiculous compared to the other seasons, of around him. And Fourcade was the fastest man in his individual seasons and still was in that 3.9, 3.8% faster range. So I don't know if I'm being clear of what I'm saying at all, but
no, it's and I must say, so when you're comparing, some of the best seasons, I'm always a little. Well, first of all, did you do like points of total points available?
Yes,
because we had that score change.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah, because you can't look at because the score change from a couple of years ago sort of makes it kind of goofy. Yeah,
but I don't know.
when percentage,
I always pick on him, but QFM winning that season to me still felt like he had a really strong season and he was unbeatable, but it was also when some other typically contenders either didn't seem to really go for it or had an off season. And that's what I find hard with, did somebody have an amazing season or did the others just have kind of a combined? That's why I love Lou and Preutz or Ligrid and Bowe when they were going, and it's still possible that number 3 and downward had off seasons, but at least there were two really pushing each other. The other thing I was going to say, I wonder if that, because you said in the last 20 years that gap has decreased, right, between the fastest and the average skiers.
Except for Johannes, yes, it has decreased. Yeah, he obviously.
But I am, because I'm working with some people from Biathlon Canada right now, looking into the impact of waxing since the fluor ban.
Yeah.
And I wonder if part, and I know JT Bowe is incredibly fast, so I don't want to take anything away from that, but in part, I wonder if that has to do with the wax, because from some very basic analysis that I've done so far, it seems like that gap has increased again between the fastest, the teams with the best budgets, highest budgets compared to the
lowest budgets.
It would be interesting to see if that sort of breaks the general trend. It's hard to say after only 2 years, but
to be fair, this was before the floor ban.
Oh, okay.
That specific year I was looking at. It was the last one before. Anyway, no, but I think that's a very good point though, especially as we look going forward. as we look back at these last 2 seasons. Another thing I want to point out is that I always respect Fourcade. I don't ever had like warm and fuzzy feelings toward him, but he was really freaking good. I just think it's worth saying that, I think he was really good. Just some of the seasons where he would be like the fastest shooter or the fastest skier and like the second or third best shooter. It's just really silly. I mean, anyway.
Well, and he's also, besides all his successes and medals and everything, I think he really changed things in biathlon where, playing the mind games in the shooting range, like skiing really close behind somebody but not passing, or being in the lead and holding back and then, kicking their butt in the range, or like, I don't remember that happened a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember that he did it because in the beginning I never really liked it because it felt unfair. But then you think about it and you're like, oh, he didn't break any rules. Like, it's not like he was, yelling in someone's face, or he was just slowing down.
That would have been interesting if he did.
Yeah.
If somebody starts doing that, then I'll definitely take notice.
Yeah, it's and that gives me a whole other thought, but it always shocks me how few incidents we see where people touch each other's skis.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
because when I'm on a biathlon mat with my legs spread out, you take a big chunk of that mat, and often you're sticking out here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think of the Bow brothers or Christensen, like super tall guys who have longer skis and longer legs, and take up more space on the mat. Like, it's pretty amazing that they actually don't hit each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you see more lefties as well. That's also, because I think typically the left foot or left ski is off the mat a little bit. But then if you have a lefty shooting, then their right foot is off, and there's really not that much space between the mats.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they don't step on each other all the time, especially onto and off the range. It just seems like there should be more collisions, more interactions, more. I don't know. It feels, especially you think about some of those moments during sprints, especially when people are going on and off the penalty loop. It feels like it should be totally chaotic.
Yeah, well, it is. That's amazing.
Yes, it is. It is chaotic.
But it's funny too that in Oslo there was it the last race where Preutz overtook Jean Monod in the shooting range before they laid down?
I don't remember.
There was a moment where they were, was passing the other, and it's also I don't think it's officially illegal, but it's kind of not necessarily. Yeah, and I think there's when there's a bunch coming in, there's usually a judge that will point at someone and say lane 1, lane 2, etc. But typically when there's sort of an order when they come in, I don't think they have to usually tell them, and it's possible that you just glide in, especially in Oslo, you come kind of from a downhill.
Yeah.
Maybe just a better glide, and you don't have to slow down per se, but So where's that project at for you? Or is it sort of ongoing, or?
It's still ongoing. Yeah, I'm not. I feel like I've got most of like the raw data. I need to then just look at it and sort of figure out how I want to separate people out. I'm trying to break people up basically into 3 different levels for like the Hall of Fame. So like your top level, which for the men is really easy to figure out, and then a second and a bottom level, and then for the women, it's just a little bit harder to sort of break people apart. I think there's just more. I mean, Forsberg is way at the top. You've got a couple others that are sort of up there, and then it's rather than being, there's a sharp delineation between, the top 3 and the men versus everybody else. And there's really not as much for the women. There's more of a gray area.
And is Forsberg at the top mostly just based on wins and medals there?
A little bit of everything. Yeah. Just if you're looking at,
do you happen to have the wins or podiums per race ratio?
So she, like, percentage?
Well, I'm always thinking of Neuner and Dahlmeier, who stopped so young.
Yeah, so for example, like Forsberg had 87 podiums out of 153 races, so she had 56% podium percentage. Okay.
That's
Dahlmeier
absurd.
was 40.3%. Neuner was 41.7%. Yeah, just great.
Do
6
you
overall
remember?
globes, 16 discipline globes, just pretty nuts.
And did she come from cross country skiing?
Forsberg?
Yeah.
I don't remember, which is embarrassing.
No, I, I don't know. Like, I think that's also
Yeah.
quite a while back, right? But I, for some reason, I vaguely remember that she was mentioned when they were talking about Lampich and Stina Nielsen, and then Herman.
Yes,
And
yes, she
I
was.
thought somebody said, even way back in time, it happened.
She was. Yep, she was She was a cross country skier until '96.
Good one.
Her best individual finish was 10th, so not terrible.
Okay. Because that's what you often hear, in North America, right? It's like the really good skiers that
Yeah.
may just not be good enough for the
Yes.
the
Yeah.
top, or don't
Exactly.
make the national team. They're, do you want to try it with a rifle on your back and
Well,
see
that's
how
how you
that
get
goes?
Lucy Anderson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Is
Well, I
that she
think a
was?
lot of them are,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we talked about that before, where that's probably a reason why they start so late. It's because they
Mhm.
don't start in biathlon; they just race until they're late teens, early 20s, and
And then have to
anyway.
figure out how to shoot. Figure out what you're doing with a rifle on your back.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. One of the things I also was struck by for women is that you have men have a more. I mean, I guess Fourcade and JT Bow are a little bit shorter on the number of seasons that they race, but the women. I mean, you've got people like Dahlmeier who raced 7 seasons, or Neuner was 7 seasons, and then you have Makarainen who was 15 seasons, or Eckhoff, 12 seasons. Andre Henkelberg was 17 seasons. So you have like these sort of big gaps between Katie Wilhelm was 10 sorry, there's somebody else who was relatively short. Forsberg herself was only 8. So it's just sort of like you mentioned, looking at percentages, but when you're looking at like overall numbers of wins or overall numbers of worlds or world medals or whatever, it's just more difficult. The other thing looking at too is that not all of the events existed, right? So you look at like mixed relays, right? So you look at world championship medals; those are people who raced 20 years ago just had fewer opportunities for world medals, or anyway.
Well, and even on the individual side,
yes,
right? There was
exactly.
there weren't always mass starts.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And just the number of races per season expanded greatly during the 90s. So
right,
it's
that too.
You look back at some of the people who competed, early on, and it's like, well, they should be recognized, but how do you figure out exactly who it's going to be? So it's fun. I'm really enjoying doing it. We had a good conversation online recently about the active athletes. So looking at like Preuss and Jean Monod, Simon, the Ubergs, Justine, who else was
kind
in
of
there?
the trend that they're on.
Kuzmina, yeah, and just so like Vitozzi, kind of like, would you consider them to be, having secured a spot? Are they on a good trend? Like Jean Monod's trend is just ridiculous, which is not a surprise to anybody. But she's got a 15%, winning percentage, which would put her,
15%?
very close to the top. I think she's got like the 3rd or 4th best winning percentage of all time right now, which is pretty crazy.
I mentioned to you at some point, it will be interesting to see the age when they win their first podium.
Yes.
I'd also be curious to see athletes how many races did they have before they had a podium? Basically, how long did they have to wait? I mean, obviously they wouldn't make it to the Hall of Fame per se if that number is really large, but would still be cool to look into as well.
Right? Yeah. It's just a interesting little factoid. Just out of did they come right in and dominate?
You mentioned Lisa Vitozzi. Any news on social media about her?
Forgot to mention this earlier. So she had a little press conference, and so she said that she is starting to feel more like herself again, and she is back to training and aiming for a full season next year.
Okay.
Wasn't big, and I'm glad it wasn't very big, because I think that's just sort of a reassuring sign. but I was happy to see her say something at all.
Yeah, I'm really happy for her. She's not on a situation like the French team is, where
Yes. Yep.
and I'm not just happy for her, but also for the coaching on the Italian team, because that would be really tough to guarantee somebody a spot if they've been away for a whole season.
No kidding.
I mean, it's stressful enough for Lisa to know, do I still have it or?
Well, and you think about everything that she had to go through,
With the
coming
prone,
back from like her prone shooting sort of mental hurdles that she had to jump over, and now she's got to get through this again. And I know they talked about her back, and I'm sure there's got to be some amount of how much do you trust your back or how much you trust your body. That's just going to be difficult to convince yourself that you're going to be okay, right? That you can go out there and compete and be okay. Same thing with, Davidova as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate to not see her come back. But
yeah.
This throws me completely on a sidetrack that hasn't been used for 40 years, kind of type of sidetrack with grass in between and stuff. But because you were talking about a sore back, and I just wanted to call out a podcast that I've been listening to, because it's really interesting. It has nothing to do with biathlon, but it's called Hooked. And it's about, it starts off as a podcast about a guy who robbed 30 banks in the U.S. You may have heard of the guy. But in the end, it actually is a whole story about how a guy who was a successful engineer at Boeing hurt his back playing roller hockey on the parking lot during lunch, got prescribed oxytoxins. Is that what it is?
Sure, yeah.
Anyway, that basically derailed him for, I think, more than 10 years, becoming an oxy addict, then becoming a heroin addict, to shooting heroin with his, teenage son, getting him in prison because of 30 bank robberies, and now at the end, finally getting his life back together. And it's, like I said, you think it's, just a cool story of how people were robbing banks and stuff. Not that I would endorse that, but we're just something to listen to while we were driving to skiing and that kind of thing. And I'd heard of the oxy addiction and stuff, but I had no idea how more complicated it was. And I guess for me, what was really good is that when you're listening to my sons 11 and 13. To hear that people that end up in prison for bad decisions they've made in their life, it's not always as easy as, oh, they're bad people.
Yeah.
Because like I said, this guy just basically got into a situation where he got addicted to pain medication that then led him to, eventually making bad decisions because he didn't see any other way out. So anyway, this is, like I said, completely derailed. But since people that love biathlon have a bit more time in the summer, I thought I'd just give it a shout out.
That actually reminds me of the story of Miriam Bedard. I think that's her name, the Canadian biathlete. And because didn't she win? She won 2 Olympic medals?
Was it bronze? Did she win bronze?
She won 3 Olympic medals. She won 2 golds at Lillehammer, and she won a bronze in Albertville. And then she actually got into, I don't remember all the details, because I was working on a project, and I still, I've gotten myself into this problem where I create all these projects and then I get distracted. So, but because I was as I was going through and making that timeline for biathlon that I did last year, I ran across all these just sort of strange stories, and I wanted to sort of set them aside to come back to them. And this is one of them. And so she got involved in a scandal that resulted in her, I think, running away with her daughter right? And it ended up she left Canada. Ended up that she was detained by the United States Marshals in Maryland. Yeah, it's this big thing. Anyway, there's not that it would be a big 8-part podcast or something, but it's a really interesting story about sort of how things can go sideways a little bit.
Yeah.
And for somebody who clearly, she's the most decorated Canadian biathlete, I think I feel pretty comfortable saying that. And just how things didn't really go the way you might have expected them to. And
like I said, it's good for young people to realize that, it's not an exception that people that end up in prison or do bad things are necessarily bad people. And I think it's also good to realize that, I think we live in a pretty tough time for kids to grow up in, politically wise. And anyway, I won't go into that, but it's good to see that there's still a lot of good things and good people.
A lot of good things and good
even
people.
if they make bad decisions sometimes.
Yes.
I think we all do. And I think it's also a story about, how you take accountability for that and how you can still move on for that. But anyway, that was okay. I'm back on the main track here. The high speed line.
Back off of our what the spur line. Yeah, we're back off of that.
Yeah.
So those are the projects I'm working on right now. I've got working on the Halls of Fame. Excuse me. Sorry, Mom. They're the project on finding the best.
So what if you're describing both the Baseball Hall of Fame and the Hockey Hall of Fame, and you're going to say, I went to 2 Hall of Fames, or did you still say 2 Halls of Fame?
2 Halls of Fame. Yep. Because the halls are the place that you go, and they are Halls of Fame.
But is the object itself not a Hall of Fame?
No,
I know I'm arguing against an English teacher, so I know I'm not going to win this. But
no. I agree with you. Actually, I think that at this point, a Hall of Fame is a singular. It should be counted as a singular noun. But anyway, so
can you ask your mom about?
I can ask her and
no, but it sounds like she gave you the official answer, but what she thinks it should be.
Oh, that's a good question. I should ask her that question. Yeah. I'll ask her to find out.
Okay.
So working on that, working on the project on identifying the best 10 to 15 single seasons, regardless of whether they ended up in an overall globe or not. So working on that. And I'm going to be hopefully sometime later this summer. It probably won't be until, July at the rate at which I go on these things, because I get distracted by, by everything that shows up in front of me. Hopefully I will have that out on the website. I'm also going to work on getting some more stories together. So that's hopefully something we can do later this summer, is
nice.
Share some little stories that I've run across. Things like Miriam Bedard, except maybe, happier, not true stories, whatever they are.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like that Ona Guevara show, right? It's like, where are people now in their lives?
Exactly.
And it's, yeah, and I'm working on that sort of analysis for Wax. I've reached out to a couple people that we might have on as a guest, and I'm keeping a close eye on what's happening with the Canadian coaching vacancy potentially. I have some, not necessarily gossip, but absolutely nothing official, but I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Chisholm and Helene Jurgensen, if I remember correctly, who are already on the coaching staff, would kind of continue as sort of the main coaches. But if I hear more, I'll update everybody here. I have not heard back from my application yet, but
I'm going to start a letter writing campaign to get Christian Gao and Emma Linder installed as the permanent head coaches.
Well, they might be busy already with. So we have that Biathlon Alberta Training Center. Rachel Karaskil, if I pronounce correctly, she's the head coach, but sounds like she's having a year off for family expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations. Christian was, I don't know his official role last season, but he was helping her out. I don't know if as an assistant or second coach or whatever. So I wouldn't be shocked if he keeps doing that, maybe just for the year.
Yeah.
And, wouldn't be far-fetched to think that Emma would be able to help him out with that. But again, this is nothing official, just what I think might be happening. But, could you imagine being like very early in your biathlon career and you having Christian Gau and Emma Lunder as your coaches?
That's pretty
not
cool.
to say, I know Rachel's an amazing coach too, but she doesn't have that World Cup name, so to speak. And I think to have access to all of that.
If you're a Canadian kid,
cool.
right, you're watching it, and you've watched them for that many years, I can imagine that suddenly being coached by them would be almost like a little bit of a starstruck moment, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, whatever you say, Mr. Gao, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
can we reveal who that we have an interviewee lined up? No date yet, but he did agree.
Go ahead.
Correct. Matthias Arons will be rejoining us to fill us in on all of his thoughts on the state of
I saw he
biathlon.
replied. I didn't see the answer yet. So, so we reached out to Emma as well because when we talked to her in Oslo, she said she'd be happy to get on. So hopefully we can make that happen as well.
Yes. Yep.
And then, I have a couple other ideas that they need to get on as well.
I am really excited. I'm excited to talk to both of them. I'm excited to catch up with Matthias because I honestly feel like we could talk to him for about, an entire day, an entire weekend. But I'm curious to see, now he's been with the youth program over there, and I know they're excited about the youth and junior championships in Arbor next season. So we'll see what he has to say. And
so sorry,
of course, I want to talk
the
to
upcoming season.
Yeah, I think so, isn't it?
Yeah, 26, right?
Yeah. And of course, I'm excited to talk to Emma Lunder and just kind of see how things have shaken out for her over the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Well, last month, I guess it's only been a month since we chatted with her.
Yeah. She might barely be back.
No.
But and if anything else pops up, then.
So this is a announcement for a audience of one. But the NFL draft is tonight through the rest of the weekend. So hopefully by the time he listens to this, Tobias is happy with the draft of the Denver Broncos. So we'll be keeping our fingers crossed for him. and hoping he's very happy. What was that?
What spot
they are drafting in the 20th position, one spot ahead of my Pittsburgh Steelers. So hopefully they don't nab any of my favorites. I will be very upset if they do.
Do they have any clear number one picks?
I haven't been paying attention.
I guess they're the only. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I have not been paying attention. I'm just I know who I want the Steelers to draft, but I don't know if the Broncos are likely to select any of their guys.
The Broncos are by far the best NFL team in the world. So why would they have to improve?
Oh, every now and then you have some injuries, and you can't account for that. So they'll be back on top next season. Don't worry.
Wilson is the guy who was.
It's
their
quarterback
for long.
Yeah, but now they've got Bo Nix. It's a great American name, right? Bo Nix.
Bo Nix.
Yeah, I imagine this guy, and I think he's from Alabama, but I just imagine him growing up there, and yeah.
That makes me think again. I mentioned that before, but Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson, man.
Where he has that at Bo plays baseball.
Bo
plays football. Yeah. And you see three more, and then you see Wayne Gretzky. No.
Yeah.
No hockey for Bo.
Oh, Bo. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a good documentary about him. Now we've gone, speaking of off the rails, there's a documentary that was done about him. It was part of the ESPN 30 for 30. And if anybody has access to the ESPN Plus, you can go find it. I think it's on Hulu as well. I think it's called Bonos, maybe. Anyway, it's easy to find. All right. I'm out. I've run out of biathlon things. So
okay.
Yeah, this
Wow.
will actually be
Under
one
an
of
hour.
our shorter episodes. So congratulations,
Oh,
go
we're not
us.
done yet, but
Yeah.
okay.
All right, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
We'll chat soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.